The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. NASCAR, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Hey, indeed. All three of us in studio, and hey, for the second week in a row, we got ourselves a guest. Well, last week we actually had two, so it isn't exactly like last week because we've got one guest, but we do have one guest nonetheless. Until they join us, it was a big penalty week in the Cup Series, so we're going to get talking about that coming up here in just a little bit. Plus, how did the NHRA's first weekend perform on television? We got the numbers here for you, so stick around for that. Got another legendary track, just a step closer to returning to NASCAR, but we still got a major hurdle to deal with on that. Got a driver who hasn't raced in a series since 2018 to return to it soon. Got more races known in the limited schedule for Jimmy Johnson. Got a former IndyCar champion back for at least one race this coming season, and a Formula One race news for two different tracks. Got all that and more coming up on this week's edition of CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. To more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yes, we are indeed. You can check us out on the radio at the station that's behind us if you're watching on CRN Live. It's 95.1 FM in East Central Alabama. If you happen to be traveling outside of that area, make sure you download their app, the Mountain app. You can catch us anywhere, or you can go to the aforementioned CRN Live and catch us pretty much anywhere. Already getting some feedback there, which, by the way, that brings us back to something that we, unfortunately, ignored last week. Our segment called Chat Lane, which is basically a chance for you to ask any of us, really Matt and myself, but if you really have a burning question for producer John, he'll entertain it. And we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about within reason. Some things are a little too personal.
Keyword.
Yeah. But by all means, send your questions in. If you got a question, we feel like we're willing to answer it. We'll be more than happy to do it. Again, within reason. Mm-hmm. Don't get too personal. Try and keep it about racing. It could be about something that you've been wondering about us when it comes to our careers and how we got to the point where we're doing this show. Or it could be something that you heard on the show today. So by all means, send those questions in. There's also an email address to that, isn't there?
Yes.
Producer John, what is the email address?
team@crnradio.us.
There you go.
TEAM@crnradio.us.
There it is. All right. So let's get into this thing here. Hey, last weekend, first-time winner in the Xfinity Series at Phoenix. It's Sammy Smith, who claims his first victory in the series at the ripe old age of 18. 11 cautions slowing the race down, but with 15 to go, Smith claimed the lead off the restart, held off his own teammate, Ryan Truex. Joe Gibbs Racing's got their 16th Xfinity Series win at Phoenix alone. I think they kind of know how to get there in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah. They've got quite a few.
That they do. Smith, then Truex, trailed by Sheldon Creed, Riley Earpst in there, Chandler Smith, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, Josh Berry, your moonlighter, Kyle Busch. Wow, 2 races in a row that Kyle Busch has run the Xfinity Series and didn't get a win?
It ain't over yet.
Wow. He's only got 3 more to go. Then you got Daniel Hemrick. We're filling out the top 10. 4 races, 3 different winners, therefore 3 different qualifiers. Austin Hill's got those 2 wins on the year. John Hunter Nemechek and now Sammy Smith in with 1 each. Rest of your top 12 in the playoffs at this time include Justin Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Riley Earpst, Sam Mayer, Cole Custer, Josh Berry, Daniel Hemrick, Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman. Kligerman keeps Brett Moffitt out right now by a rather slim 12 points. There's still some movement that I could see happening here, but now that we're about 4, getting ready to go 5 races in, we're starting to see who's going to be in there and who's going to be fighting to get in.
There's a very high chance that could change in probably about, say, 1, 2, 3.
Within the
About
next,
6-7 hours.
I was about to say, within the next 12 hours, this could change radically. We don't know.
Yeah.
Then you got Sunday with 2 race events, one of them down in Florida, the NHRA kicking off their 2023 season with the Amelie Motor Oil Gator Nationals. In Top Fuel, it came down to, no shock here, Steve Torrence taking on Mike Salinas. Torrence was quicker off the light, but then a little bit of a shock with, by the 330-foot mark, Salinas powering by, gets the win. 3.7 flat elapsed time, 330.31 miles per hour. That's his 8th career Top Fuel win, and at the expense of Steve Torrence. Go get that. Matt Hagan makes it to the Funny Car Finals, takes on J.R. Todd. The pair were even, I mean dead even off the light. Each posted a reaction time of .054. That don't happen often.
Rare.
From there, it was all Hagan. He bested Todd by 0.2, 3.926 ET, 329.34 miles per hour. First time out in only their 2nd year, Tony Stewart Racing gets another win with Matt Hagan. Pro Stock Car, Troy Coughlin Jr. in against Mason McGahey. Coughlin quicker off the light, never looked back. 6.637 ET, 208.71 miles per hour. Troy walking away with his 3rd career event win. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Angie Smith, Gage Herrera. Yeah, one of the youngsters in there getting to the finals. Herrera kind of in a mild upset. Much quicker off the light. Extends the lead all the way to the other end of the run. 6.706 ET, 202.15 miles per hour. Winning the Gator Nationals, not too bad for your first career Camping World Drag Series Racing Division win.
No, that's a pretty big one to win for your first one.
Yep. If you're talking about the top level of the NHRA, Gator Nationals is what we would call a crown jewel, boys and girls. We'll deal with the points next time around. Finally, factory stock showdown, I should say. You've got Aaron Stanfield in his Copo Camaro against Joe Welsh in his Dodge Challenger drag pack. Welsh quicker off the light. Stanfield couldn't do anything with it. Welsh wins 7.638 ET, 185.18 miles per hour. And in the process, he actually set a division speed record. again, you wonder why we're doing this, because technically the Factory Stock Showdown is not a Camping World Drag Racing Series division. I'm fascinated by it because if you had the money, which in the case of a Copo Camaro would cost you top level about $140,000, you can go buy one at your local Chevrolet, Ford, or Dodge dealer. Again, if you got the money.
Yeah.
That's what fascinates me about those cars.
I'll pull it out of my pocket.
Yeah, I'll write a check. How far post-dated do I need to do that? 25 years. Okay, let's see. That'll take us now back out west for the second event of Sunday afternoon, the Cup Series, where it came down to a hair trigger by race control. Long green flag runs went to the benefit of the 2014 Cup champion, Kevin Harvick's number 4 car. But when Harrison Burton spun his number 21 with less than 10 laps to go, NASCAR threw a caution. Thing about it is, if you actually watched, I should say just over 10 to go. Thing is, Burton spun the car, yeah, but he was able to get the car back under control. He didn't hit the wall, and he drove off. And I get it. I mean, there was some debris from a blown tire that was kind of out there, but it was pretty much, as far as I could tell, all on the apron, out of the racing groove. Why race control had the hair trigger on the yellow, I'll never know.
That's the question of the entire existence of the series. Let's call it that.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this is something that Matt and I have questioned on several occasions from our vantage point at Talladega. We've seen it at Darlington. We've seen it at Richmond. We've seen it at Homestead, Miami. We've seen it at Atlanta. We saw it at Daytona. Saw it at Phoenix last week. It's just, they're just a little bit too quick to throw that caution. But either way, they threw it. So all the leaders come down pit road. Harvick and his team decided to go for 4 tires. Several drivers, including 2 from Hendrick Motorsports, William Byron and Kyle Larson, they chose to go with 2. The restart didn't make the white flag. That's because Ty Gibbs got into the wall, and then 2 other drivers got into each other, and that means another yellow, and that means overtime. Byron got the jump off that final restart. He claims the win, besting a hard-charging Ryan Blaney, the first driver who changed 4 tires on the final pit stop. No, I'm not talking about Kevin Harvick. Tyler Reddick jumps up and claims 3rd. Kyle Larson 4th. Kevin Harvick could do no better than recover and claim 5th. Christopher Bell 6th. Chase Briscoe, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, and Chase Elliott's fill-in Josh Berry fill out the top 10. William Byron now has 2 wins on the season. He leads the way with Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. also locked into the playoffs. And then there are these drivers who are in on points. This is before penalty day earlier this week, mind you. It began with Alex Bowman, then Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick is now your new points leader, by the way. Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Daniel Suarez, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace. They're your 16. Bubba Wallace leads Austin Cindric by 11 points for that final playoff spot. I still look at this lineup, and I'm saying we're going to see plenty of changes, and they could happen within the next 48 hours. Because this weekend's slate of racing is, well, it's very NASCAR-centric. It does have a Formula One kicker. Later today, as we air live, the Craftsman Truck Series is going to be running the Freight 208 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Fox Sports 1 has TV. MRN Radio has the radio coverage. Starts 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. The 3 of us will be there for it. Now, qualifying was rained out yesterday. Zane Smith sits on the pole. We'll also be there for the Xfinity Series Raptor King of Tough 250 for the Xfinity Series. That's on Fox Sports 1 and PRN Radio. A 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central start time at Atlanta. Yes, they've got lights. Qualifying, as noted for the trucks, also rained out for Xfinity. Sammy Smith, the guy who just won last week, he's going to lead the field of green today. Formula One back in action for Sunday. They're going to run the STC Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It's on the Jeddah Corniche circuit. It's kind of a rather long, 3.83 mile long, 27 turn. Yeah, I said that, 27 turn. It's a temporary road course, street course, whatever you want to call it. It airs on ESPN beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. Of course, I use the word temporary for now. We'll get back to that in Formula One news. And then the Cup Series, wrapping up the race weekend with the Am Better Health 400 from Atlanta. And yeah, we're going to be there for that too. Fox and PRN Radio have the coverage beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Hey, new listeners, want to remind you of this. We do this from time to time. The times that we give for the show, on the show here, are the race coverage time. They do not include pre-race. The reason we don't include pre-race is because radio does it at a different time than television, and it would just get all muddled. We're just going to go for your times when race coverage will actually begin.
Yep.
Formula E, Indycar, and the NHRA all are off this weekend. So there you go. That's your rundown. As I mentioned, Alex Bowman was your points leader. Yeah, not really anymore. When we come back from this break, Wednesday is usually penalty day in NASCAR. Sometimes they'll toss out the penalties on Tuesday, but they waited until Wednesday this week. And for Hendrick Motorsports, let's just say it wasn't just a hammer, boys. It was a sledgehammer that fell. And it fell hard. And they weren't the only ones to get it. Cowlick Racing got a little bit of it, and so did Denny Hamlin. We'll detail it all next on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, and you. We appreciate you checking us out here on this Saturday morning. Wow, March 18th already. Cruising right on through. Well, this past week, and usually it's 1 of 2 days that NASCAR throws down their penalties. Sometimes it's Tuesday, usually it's Wednesday, and on Wednesday, they came down hard. 3 announcements specifically, 2 related to the breaking news that we had on the show 1 week ago. Talking about those hood louvers on the Hendrick Motorsports rides. Well, Hendrick Motorsports released a statement that said, in part, quote, on Friday at Phoenix Raceway, NASCAR identified louvers on our race cars during a voluntary inspection 35 minutes after the opening of the garage and prior to on-track activity. Those louvers were what landed the biggest team penalty ever from NASCAR. The penalty? Total, $400,000. $100,000 for each of the 4 team crew chiefs, and each of them has been ordered to sit for 4 races. In addition, the team drivers, Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Alex Bowman, have been docked 100 regular season and 10 playoff points. The reason I mentioned those 3 is because it does not affect Chase Elliott. He's out due to injury. And it does not affect his fill-in, Josh Berry, because Josh Berry doesn't run for Cup points. He runs for points in the Xfinity Series. So, therefore, it doesn't affect either of those 2. Small consolation. The Hendrick Motorsports statement continued, quote, NASCAR took possession of the parts approximately 4 hours later with no prior communication. The situation had no bearing on Saturday's qualifying session or Sunday's race. They said that they were going to appeal the ruling and the fines and the penalties that were handed down. Hendrick's appeal of the penalties is based, they say, upon the louvers being a single-source part that did not match the design submitted by Chevrolet, and that the penalties were so severe due to inconsistent and muddied communication between the teams and NASCAR related to the parts, and that recent comparable penalties were all related to things that were uncovered in post-race inspection, not pre-race inspection. NASCAR fired back on the appeal, specifically noting that Cowlick Racing and driver Justin Haley recently got hammered with the exact same penalty. And NASCAR Senior VP of Competition, Elton Sawyer, added this, quote, it was obvious to us that these parts have been modified in an area that wasn't approved. Cowlick, by the way, also appealing those particular penalties. But the thing about Hendrick's appeal is that it kind of seems like they don't feel like they've got a real good chance of winning this. They haven't asked for a deferral. In other words, the crew chiefs are starting their suspensions officially this weekend. So they needed 4 substitute crew chiefs. They've got Brian Campy for the 24, Greg Ives on the 48, Kevin Meendering on the 5, and for the 9, it'll be Tom Gray. Ives is the only one who actually has prior crew chief experience in the Cup Series, but the other 3, like Ives, all have engineering backgrounds. They've been longtime employees at Hendrick Motorsports, so I don't think that they're going to miss a whole lot, truth be told, by switching to them. But I do find it interesting that they'll appeal, but they're not asking for the waiver to make sure that the crew chiefs are on the box this weekend.
This one, all week long, has left me with a migraine of epic proportions. Okay.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess, and I can see Chad Knaus's point, because if these single source parts are being distributed by this part supplier,
Which
they're putting them
purportedly they are.
putting them straight on the car.
Should be.
If this is being supplied in an incorrect design from the CAD file supplied, that's not on Hendrick.
No, it's really not.
Okay? Here's where, and this came out 16 hours ago that Bob Pockers put on his social media. NASCAR rules are a car can be inspected at any time during an event.
Yeah, we can pretty much figure that.
We knew that.
Yeah.
All right. Canal stated that there was a pre-race memo that he has that was sent to teams in Phoenix, said a voluntary inspection Friday beyond the general safety and engine inspection. And there are times during this inspection where teams can be told to fix things without penalty.
Okay. But this tells me that they didn't give them that leeway.
Okay. Where Hendrick's, and this is my opinion, where Hendrick Motorsports, I think they've got them hook, line, and sinker. These cars never hit the track with these louvers on. They
True.
were not qualified. They were not raced with them.
I don't think they've even been practiced yet, have they?
It was found pre-race. No. Anytime penalties like this are dropped of any kind, it's always post-race.
Yeah. Which is what they said in the appeal.
Yes. It's always post-race. Something pre-race found wasn't right. And from everything that I've seen, it was like, oh, that don't look right. We got to take them. You've got to physically measure the thing and know those dimensions. And you bet I hope when I get to Atlanta here in a little while, I want to talk to I want to find the official that saw this, located this, and how did he physically know that something was up with that louver without measuring it?
Well, and this goes back to what we have said on numerous occasions, like when they were testing, for example, this new Gen 7 car, and they were talking about how they'd put it through a crash test scenario out at Talladega Superspeedway. Be open about this, okay? Let's have some transparency here. And what we mean by that is very, very simple. You say that these louvers that you took from Hendrick Motorsports are not in compliance with what that single source part for the Chevrolet cars should be, because they're different from the Fords and they're different from the Toyotas. They all three have very different looks. For me, the best thing that NASCAR could do is take a picture of the louvers that they took off of the Hendrick cars and identify them and then say, by the way, this is the approved louver for the Chevrolet Gen 7 Cup Series cars. Can you see the difference?
Yeah. I mean, you have to. You need to line up the actual approved one versus the one supplied by the single source manufacturer, which could be Walmart for all I know, versus the one that was pulled off of the Hendrick car.
Well, let's find out. I mean, let's actually look and see what is the difference between what you say is approved and what you say they have in the wrong.
Line all three of them up, and I'm gonna use a line that comes from the comedian Jeff Dunham when he has Peanut. One of these things just doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Which one doesn't belong? Which one's right? Which one? And put each one of them. Louver A, here's the dimensions off of it. Louver B, here's the dimensions. Louver C, here's the dimensions. Louver A versus Louver B versus Louver C. Which one is right?
Yep. That's what we need to do.
And I'm telling you, we had this problem last year.
Oh, yeah.
They had a severe, and I'm going to label it as a severe problem of not being transparent of what was wrong with this here. Oh, $100,000 fine, 100-point deduction. You had a modified part. Okay, what was modified? Show what was modified.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is what we found here. This is where it was modified at versus what it should be per what the rule book is.
I'm willing to a certain extent, at least for NASCAR, I'm willing to take them at their word, but I would also like to see proof. Show me. You know, you're gonna nail arguably the most popular team, certainly the most successful team going in NASCAR. I mean, heck, they're closing in on 300 wins as an operation, and they've only been in existence since the mid-1980s. There's no doubt about it. They are a very, very good team. And just like every team in NASCAR, they're going to do everything that they can to get every advantage they can. But you're going to claim that these are wrong. But no other Chevrolet teams at Phoenix were found to be in the wrong. So what's the difference here? Show us what the difference is. Prove to us that, yes, there is a difference between the louvers that you approved and the louvers that you took off those Hendrick cars last weekend. Transparency. It's that simple.
If it's a supplied part by Chevrolet, that's the big word here, Chevrolet, line the ones up that was on Hendrick versus the one up that was on the 16 car of Collie,
Sure.
versus the ones that are on RCR, versus the ones that are on Trackhouse. Show me the difference.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, truth be told. Something that broadcasters automatically know, and I don't care whether you're on radio or on television, especially though nowadays. When I first got started in the business 35 years ago, I could honestly say, yeah, I've got to be aware anytime I have set foot in a radio station because you never know when a microphone might be live.
True.
Nowadays, with these wonderful little things, smartphones, not only do you have to worry about microphones, but these microphones here and these cameras. You never know when a microphone or a camera is live and trained on or near you and what they're going to pick up. Ladies and gentlemen, Denny Hamlin, longtime NASCAR driver, veteran NASCAR driver, won many races, come close to winning championships, but apparently hasn't quite figured out that you got to be careful about what you say on camera and or microphone. And this brings us to the other penalty that NASCAR handed down this week, and it does go to Hamlin, who spoke candidly on his rather ironically titled Actions Detrimental podcast for Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Dirty Mo Media. He was asked early this week about his late race contact at Phoenix with Ross Chastain. Holding nothing back, Hamlin said, quote, "It," talking about the contact, "wasn't a mistake. I let the wheel go and I said, he's coming with me. I saw that we were the only people up top, so I said, I'm going to send him into the fence and door him. Now I got caught up in it because I got pinned. He was between me and the wall, so then I got all screwed up, and then I lost a bunch of positions for my team, which was stupid as blank. I was like, I'm going to finish in the mid-teens anyway because my car's just plowing here, and I'm going to get ate up by all these other drivers on these new tires, so if I'm going to give this guy a hard time, this is going to be then." He also noted that part of his decision was based upon the fact that he and Chastain have had numerous run-ins since Chastain has become full-time in the Cup Series. There's being honest, and then there's letting your mouth flap when you probably should have kept it shut. Because NASCAR, after hearing those words, promised to look into the incident and then re-look at the incident on Sunday, and when they did, they decided to slap Hamlin with a $50,000 fine and docked him 25 driver points for his intentional contact with Chastain, calling the move, ironically, an action detrimental. Goes back to the title of his podcast. Action detrimental to stock car racing and attempting to manipulate the outcome of a race and or championship by intentionally wrecking and or spinning another car. And if you want more information on that, ladies and gentlemen, all you need to do is go find Michael Waltrip.
When the words are uttered, "You're coming with me," Denny, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
That right there, if we were to say, I don't know, charge you with a major felony, Denny Hamlin, I get this. I'm taking this to the nth degree. But if you were charged with a major felony, Denny, and you said, I'm taking him with me, that adds on an aspect meaning that that was intentional or premeditated, shall we use the term. It's not a good thing.
When you open yourself up and you say, one, "You're coming with me." Two, you say, "I just let the wheel go and let the car go up the track." You don't randomly let a doggone steering wheel go in the middle of turn 1 and 2 at Phoenix.
No.
If you don't have any intention, when you say, "Oh, there's the Kubota car with a 1, bullseye."
Taking him out.
That's stupid.
Yeah. It's a moronic
That
move
is
there, Denny.
absolutely stupid.
It's a moronic move. Congratulations. You've been docked 25 driver points and you're $50,000 lighter. One more note, and no surprise here. They had a broken wheel on the Stewart-Haas Racing number 10 of Eric Almirola during the race. He hit the wall, and then the wheel basically came apart. Crew members Ryan Mulder and Sean Cotton were suspended for 2 races for an improperly installed wheel tire. And even Drew Blickensderfer, who was the crew chief, he showed up on Fox Sports 1 in their NASCAR Nation, or NASCAR Race Day, I should say. And he said, yeah, in all likelihood, it was just because of the fact that that tire, we didn't get that single lug nut secured properly, and it caused him to plow. It caused him to hit the wall. Wheel broke. Boom, we're done. So he understood it.
A little bit more on the Denny Hamlin deal.
Oh, okay.
He shared last 16 hours ago.
Okay.
Tweeting, quote,
Yeah.
"After much consideration, I've decided that I will appeal the decision by NASCAR to penalize me." Here's the fun part. What happened on Sunday was common hard racing that happens each and every weekend. There was also no manipulation of the race nor actions detrimental to the sport.
Denny, I want to take you back to the quote that only I did, because I didn't take the whole quote, obviously, from the entire podcast. So let me go back to that part that kind of caused NASCAR to go back and take another look at the race. You said, quote, "It wasn't a mistake. I let the wheel go and said he's coming with me."
Yeah.
I think that's it. I don't think I even need to go any further than that.
EOD. End of discussion.
Mic drop. It wasn't a mistake. I let the wheel go and said he's coming with me. I'll go a little further. I saw that we were the only people up top. If you look at the replay, the only people up top with Denny Hamlin was the one people. In other words, the one car, the Kubota, Ross Chastain. Yeah, you targeted him. Sorry, folks. I can win this, and I ain't no lawyer. John, you got something?
Failed appeal.
Yeah, get ready to stroke that check there, bud.
Just like my appeal denied.
Yeah, which that's another story entirely. Let's see. What do we got here? Well, there's some Kevin Harvick news because they got a special paint scheme coming out. Jimmy Johnson has said that he wants to race a handful of races this year. We got a better idea of some of the races that are coming up on his schedule here, so that ought to be a little fun. Plus, we're going to take a look not only at something that the Stewart-Haas Racing team is doing for Harvick, but something that Legacy MC is doing for their rookie driver, Noah Gragson. As we continue with Cup news next, then we've got Xfinity, Truck Series news, and we've got some track news as well from NASCAR. We'll let you know all about that when we get back right here on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. to the Championship Racing Network.
Yes, indeed, we are back, and thank you for joining us here on this weekend's edition of CRN. I appreciate it. I know that Matt does, and our producer John Myers does too. Hey, so you're saying there's a chance? Maybe. What are we talking about? Jimmy Johnson. He's announced 2 more of his limited slate of 2023 races that he's going to attempt to qualify for in that number 84 Legacy MC Chevy Camaro. He's going to Texas. He'll attempt to get into the race at COTA. Remember, he does not have a charter on that car, so he has to qualify for that race. And then he's going to have to attempt to qualify for a race that he all but owned at one point in time, talking about the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I don't think he'll have much of a problem qualifying for either myself. Thing is, Johnson says he's checking off sort of a racing bucket list. He wants to get into some races that he just wants to get into because he just wants to get into them. So what's left? Well, he talked to the Associated Press over the course of this week. He mentioned that he still has a list of marquee events, but adding that I'm kind of running out of ideas. He continued, truth be told, I've been able to scratch off some significant experiences. I'd still love the Coke 600 Indy 500 double someday. So again, you're saying there's a chance. Probably not this year, though. Then I can kind of get into some more experiences from either a car or a track that I want to drive, but out of those big ticket items, I'm running out of options. Someday, probably not going to be this year, because he has said he does want to try to get into the All-Star race, which is the return of NASCAR to North Wilkesboro Speedway. I understand him wanting to do that. Everybody kind of wants to get into that. It's a heritage track, and even drivers who are not alive the last time NASCAR raced there are saying, you know what? We want to race at North Wilkesboro.
That's where the old saying of everyone's mother, third cousin, and uncle will come out to try to make this race.
Absolutely. In other words, if you won $1 billion in a lottery, family members that you didn't even know you had would be asking you for money. We're going back to North Wilkesboro. People that NASCAR didn't even realize had a NASCAR license are going, hey, we want to race. But no, not likely this year, because the thing about it is All-Star race weekend happens on the exact same time that Indy 500 qualifying happens. So the double this year, probably not really an option. But again, he said he'd like to do it someday. Johnson also told the AP he'd like to get in about 10 cup races in a year, but says probably this year, year number 1, not going to happen. Adding he's got about 2 more years realistically to compete and try to get another Daytona 500 win. He got in this year's 500. He'll run COTA. He'll run the Coca-Cola 600, set to attempt the All-Star race. Plus, he's racing at Le Mans. And that appears only to be the beginning of his 2023 racing plans. We'll have to find out what else he has on tap throughout the course of the year.
Hey, Jim, you want to load the 84 ball up and bring it to Talladega? I'll drive it for you.
Oh, there you go.
Well, just a thought. just a thought.
Since it's just going to be sitting there and you haven't mentioned Talladega.
Yeah.
Just saying. First picture of the day. We have said, basically, since the beginning of the 2023 season that this is going to be Kevin Harvick's final as a full-time Cup Series racer. This triggers a lot of stories, so be prepared, and sorry if you're already tired of them. But we have another one, and I got to admit, this one's a pretty cool one. If you're looking on CRN Live, nope, that's not Photoshop, boys and girls. Kevin Harvick came to Stewart Haas Racing in 2014 from Richard Childress Racing. That was where he raced the number 29. It was the number given to him after unexpectedly taking over what had been the 3-car of Dale Earnhardt in 2001. What was the reason for the 29, they said? It was the first number available. Since leaving the 29 car, that number has been sitting idle, just waiting for someone to come along and use it. And that someone will once again be Harvick. Stewart Haas Racing got permission from NASCAR to change Harvick's number for one race. It's not, ironically, the Darlington throwback race. It'll be at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. It's going to look a lot like it did back in 2001. You got the red number 29, which was the number that he used immediately after. It changed to black later on. However, instead of the GM Goodwrench colors, he's got the Busch Light colors on there. But otherwise, that's a pretty good rendition.
2 bullet points here. 1, I can now officially see throwback weekend migrating from Darlington to Wilkesboro for the All-Star race.
I could see that, yeah.
I mean, because you do not get any more throwback than that.
No.
Secondly, for a one-off, to go along with the theme of having GM Goodwrench, which is now Chevrolet Performance, basically. Should have slapped Ford Performance on the side of the car to make it eerily similar to what GM Goodwrench was back in that day.
That actually would have been a good move. I agree.
That would have been phenomenal because to me, the old Busch Light logo with the blue kind of doesn't.
It is the one thing that is kind of off.
Kind of doesn't jihad up with the red and white of the car.
Yeah. But otherwise, that is a sharp-looking car right there.
But being for the All-Star race, this is not the first time number changes have happened because Mark Martin drove 25 one year, Jimmy Johnson drove 5, Kyle Busch drove 75 one year.
Yep.
So All-Star race, fair game. Not a bad move at all, in my opinion.
Yep. That car, that picture that you see right there on CRN Live on YouTube is courtesy of Jayskis, and we appreciate them for it. And then there's this picture, which this is a pretty good car, good-looking car, too. Legacy MC reuniting 2023 rookie driver Noah Gragson with an old sponsor from his Xfinity Series days. Courtesy of the Legacy MC website, you can see the new Black Rifle Coffee Company sponsored number 42 car. The team announced that you're going to see that look in 6 races this year, starting at Circuit of the Americas next weekend. Also on slate for the coffee company on the car, Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600, then Nashville, Daytona in the final race of the regular season, Bristol in the fall, you know, the one that's not on dirt, and the season finale in Phoenix. That's a pretty good-looking car, too, right there.
It's not bad.
Ross Chastain, as we turn our attention to the Xfinity Series, really overshadows his brother Chad, but Chad's also a racer. He's going to get something of a dream shot at Atlanta later today as we air. He's set to make his Xfinity Series debut. He's going to drive the number 91 Camaro for DGM Motorsports. His primary sponsor going to be Protect Your Melon. Noticing a trend here with Chastain's family. It's a campaign, by the way, that promotes seatbelt use in this case. Chad has a handful of Truck Series starts, 2021 and 2022 with Nice Motorsports. DGM knows the family quite well. Ross has driven for them in the past, so they're going to bring in Chad for that race. What little you know of Chad, what do you think about this particular pairing?
Seat time.
Basically?
Seat time.
Is it more Chad or is it more DGM and cars?
More Chad.
Okay.
Having seat time in this stuff in general because he's only got a handful of Truck Series starts.
Yeah, and has never raced Xfinity.
Never raced Xfinity. And
at Atlanta, of all places.
Hey, let's let your first Xfinity race be on a super speedway.
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not? Yeah, let's go.
Go for it. JD Motorsports is welcoming back an old friend. They're bringing back Garrett Smithley, effective today. The team making it a 2-car operation with Trophy Tractor as a sponsor. They're going to drive the number 4 Camaro for the rest of the 2023 season. Smithley drove for JD Motorsports. Back then it was with Gary Keller. From 2016 to 2019, and now he comes back to the team, and he will pair with the number 6 Camaro driven by Brennan Poole. What this does is leaves Bailey Curry without a seat due to the moves made by the team. That sounds like a sponsorship issue as well. Smithley comes in, has a sponsor. Curry, I think, was having trouble with sponsors. They made that move because it made more financial sense.
It does.
And I hate to say it for Bailey Curry because Bailey Curry is actually a pretty good young driver. We saw him a couple of years ago pairing up with Kyle Weatherman, and they were actually able to make some noise with what had been, sorry, Mike Harmon, a back marker operation in the Mike Harmon Racing operation. I mean, we even saw them getting top 20s and even a couple of top 10s, if I remember correctly. Bailey Curry's a good young driver. He just doesn't have the backing right now.
Yeah, he's just got a long way to go. Short time to get there.
Unfortunately for him, yeah. When you don't have your built-in sponsor, and welcome to the current days of racing, boys and girls, you really have to prove it out there. And I kind of thought that he had really begun to, but, you know, when you're dealing with teams that are low budget to begin with, might be the best way to put it, they're going to go with the check.
Yep.
Speaking of which, a check coming in for SMG Racing and their driver, Greg Galding. We got a picture for you here. They're welcoming a new to NASCAR sponsor this weekend at Atlanta. It's Follow Me Global Business Solutions. The plan is to have this one be the first of several races on the hood for the sponsor on that particular car that you see right there. That picture courtesy of catchfence.com on CRN Live on YouTube. Pretty good-looking car there. Follow Me is basically it's a consultancy firm. This is their first foray into NASCAR sponsorship. So this will be interesting to watch and see how much this benefits them. Turn our attention to the Truck Series here. Craftsman Truck Series bringing you Hey, guess what? Getting John on his toes. Another picture. Advent Health noting that this March is Women's History Month, and this month, in case you didn't know, is they're going to use it to celebrate women in racing. Part of that is to become a sponsor for ThorSport Racing and Haley Deegan. Partnership begins later today as we go live on air at Atlanta Motor Speedway on the truck you can now see on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of ThorSport.com. Not a bad-looking truck right there.
No. Not at all.
I'm going to ask this question here because at one point in time there were – go ahead and put that picture back up real quick, John. At one point in time there were a lot of superstitions when it came to racing, and one of them was don't drive a green car, and nobody really wanted to touch the number 13.
Mm-hmm.
Those seem to have kind of gone away.
To some. To a lot, it still exists.
Won't touch green for anything.
The superstitions, those two superstitions in racing, plus the reason I'm saying this because I've seen this with my own eyes.
Okay.
Don't eat boiled peanuts around a race car.
Don't eat boiled peanuts. Okay, that's a new one on me.
Gets on the tires. Slimy.
There you go. 1. 2, with the boiled peanut deal, the superstition is if anybody eats boiled peanuts around your race car, your motor's going to let go.
Okay.
I saw a motor let go on a car that had boiled peanuts eat around it. Second one
Okay.
is don't go racing with a $50 bill in your pocket.
Okay. That's 2 new ones on me.
Methinks he opened a can of worms.
No,
here.
I did open a can of worms.
Are you trying to figure out the proper way to put this on the radio?
I did open a can of worms up simply because it was 6 years ago today, and if I had taps, I'd play taps right now. When I was testing at Talladega and had the first engine failure I've had in 10 years of driving cars, a $50 bill was in my wallet.
I've never heard that superstition before in my life.
Me neither.
$50 bill.
13's lucky, by the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, the more you know.
All right, then. If you're not superstitious, don't worry about it. Just wanted to throw it out there. Hey, Christopher Bell, Cup Series driver set to go Truck Series racing this year. But Kyle Busch Motorsports is no longer in the Toyota camp. So who's he driving for? Hattori Racing Enterprises. He's going to race at North Wilkesboro. It's going to mark Bell's first Camping World, or now Craftsman Truck Series race since 2018. He's going to drive Hattori Racing Enterprises number 61 Toyota Tundra. He'll pair with Tyler Ankrum as NASCAR and their teams break out every single thing that they can for the return again at North Wilkesboro. We just said it. If you win the lottery, everybody and their brother and their brother's sisters and their sisters' mothers and people that you never knew you might even have a quasi-relation to will come and ask you for money. We're going back to North Wilkesboro.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that's ever had a NASCAR license is going, is that NASCAR license still valid?
Mm-hmm.
Then we got yet another picture for you. This one here, courtesy of CatchFence.com. This is what the Spencer Boyd number 12 truck is going to look like later today if you're watching on CRN Live on YouTube, and a few more times this year. He's got off-the-grid surplus. It's an apparel company joining him. They actually joined him for the 2022 season finale at Phoenix last year, so they're back for more coming this year. Again, handful of races. Yeah, glad to have them on board, and I know that Spencer Boyd appreciates the little extra boost in the sponsorship cash.
Absolutely.
And then this brings us to the soap opera that is Nashville Fairgrounds. It's still one of the slowest moving things on planet Earth right now. But at least we have a little bit of movement when it comes to the potential of bringing back Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway and potentially getting it back into the good graces of NASCAR racing. Tuesday evening, the Nashville Fair Board met. They approved the plans from executives at Bristol Motor Speedway to come in, renovate, and improve the facility. You can get a picture of it in a moment when John gets it prepared on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of the Tennessean.com newspaper.
All you had to say is go ahead and show that beautiful slide.
Roll that beautiful track footage. The commissioners were not unanimous. This is the thing this is what I keep talking about when it comes to dealing with this track. The commissioners, and remember, this is the fair board. These are the people that are in control of the area that the track sits on. They were split 3-2. What? Look at that. And I get it. If you're listening on the radio or the app, you can't see it. Do yourself a favor. Go find the plans here. But if you're on CRN Live, and for Matt and John and myself who can look at it on monitors here in the studio, tell me what is not to like about that.
It's interfering with their little baby known as Geodis Park, the 32,000-seat soccer stadium that sits, I know for a fact, literal feet off of people's back porches.
Yeah.
But yet and this is the rated Y7 version of it, we're fussing and griping over a track that's been there before your house was even built.
Yep.
Give me a break.
So anyway, the Fair Board themselves split 3-2, but in the end they did approve the plans that would add seats to the front straight over into turn 1, would repave the track surface, which, when was the last time that track surface was paved?
Quite a while.
Yeah. And there's a lot more in the works, and we're not going to go into the full details now. With that approval, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
On our live chat, James says it looks better than a soccer stadium. That's because it is better.
It is better than a soccer stadium. You are correct.
There you go. And apparently it's going to force them to run mufflers. When we're going to spend bukus of money putting sound mitigating walls up, which I've seen them at tracks. They have them at Port Royal Speedway in Pennsylvania at a dirt track, and they work kind of well with sprint cars.
Yeah. Anyway. So this is just step 1.
Trying to have a good day.
Now the plans move on to the Metropolitan Sports Authority and the Nashville City Council. If they approve it, then, according to the proposal's wording, Bristol Motor Speedway would then enter into a long-term lease to manage and maintain the track. That's not a bad thing. Because honestly, we could honestly BMC, bitch, moan, and complain about the way that they have changed Bristol over the years, but they have well maintained the facility. I honestly believe that SMI, the parent company of Bristol Motor Speedway, would be well in hand when it comes to maintaining this facility. I mean, that right there is probably what? 40 to 50,000 people in the grandstands? Give or take? I mean, just kind of looking at it.
At least.
I might go 35. Let me see. When we were there for the SRX series last year, the grandstands filled, what, 20 to 25K?
Roughly.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably another easy 15,000. So I'd say, yeah, 15 to 25,000. So, yeah, 40 to 50,000 seats. Ladies and gentlemen, let me potentially give you something here that all different municipalities like. And I don't care how big they are, New York City, Los Angeles. I don't care how small they are. Pick the smallest town on the map that you can potentially find. What do all municipalities like? Tax revenue. Tax revenue. 40 to 50,000 people coming in and buying tickets at a facility that's within your city limits. And then maybe beforehand or after the fact, going to restaurants, staying in hotels. What is that? What's that two-word thing that I was just saying? That's right, tax revenue.
Bingo.
Duh. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to have the announcer from the World of Outlaws Sprint Series that's coming, by the way, to our own backyard here in the East Alabama. We're going to have him on. Plus, we've got Indycar, Formula One, and we got a little bit of news for the straight liners as well. So hour number 2 is on deck. Thank you very much for joining us in hour 1. Don't go anywhere unless it's just to grab another cup of coffee or whatever it is that you want. Maybe it's a Danish or a biscuit. We'll see you when we come back. Hour number 2 on deck right here on the Championship Racing Network.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in, kicking off hour number 2, talking about a little bit of straight line racing, but I'm going to preface this by saying this. When it comes to television ratings, or really even radio ratings when it comes to sports, there are the kings of all sports, and that is the National Football League. Right behind it, for those of you that are in the Southeast and you say, what is the National Football League? Number 2 is college football. Let's face it, football in the United States of America rules. NFL is the king of television ratings and radio ratings, and college football is right behind it. What a whole lot of people don't understand is that third on the list is not Major League Baseball, it's not the NBA, and it's certainly not the NHL. It's NASCAR. Then you can get Major League Baseball. You might get an NBA game in the regular season if it's a big marquee event. Might be the finals, more than likely. And the NHL kind of starts to come up there, especially if you get into the Stanley Cup finals. We're also seeing, as we have talked about, the resurgence of the NHRA, Indycar, and Formula One, all coming up into now millions. Okay, and that brings us to last weekend, NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series kicking off their season with, as we said, one of their crown jewel races and one of the bigger races on the schedule, the Gator Nationals. They did it in style. They put it on the Fox network, the main network, right before they switched over to Cup Series race coverage. Did it help TV ratings? Indeed, it did. The finals coverage on Sunday, despite a relatively early noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time start, drew in 1.12 million on average throughout the course of the 2 hours of coverage. It's the highest numbers for the Gator Nationals since Fox Sports obtained the television rights to the Camping World Drag Racing Series, and that happened back in 2016. At its peak, the number topped 1.5 million people watching, and that tops the average Formula One and IndyCar race. Not bad at all. On top of that, the race weekend at the Gator Nationals in Gainesville was a sellout. It led the NHRA to call the weekend a great kickoff to the 2023 season. Thank you for your understatement, the NHRA. Fox has shown a commitment to the NHRA as well. They recently announced an extension of their television rights deal with them last year. And they've started to put the NHRA a whole lot more on that main network. And in the case of last weekend, again, you went straight from the drag racing at Gainesville in the Gator Nationals, and you went straight into NASCAR coverage. Last year, you might remember on more than one occasion, they actually paired him up against that king. And you went, depending on whether you're East Coast or West Coast, you went from NFL to the NHRA or NHRA to the NFL. Fox is doing it right. We've talked about it many, many times. One of the things that ESPN really kind of screwed up with when they had the coverage rights to the NHRA is every single one of those races was tape delayed. All of them.
Yep, they were.
Fox has really done a very, very nice job in bringing and helping bring the NHRA back onto the motorsports stage here in the United States of America. Congratulations to him. Meantime, we turn our attention to IndyCar, where Jack Harvey continues his recovery from a pretty hard wreck that he suffered in the season opener, the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. In case you missed it, during the race, he was involved in a multi-car crash that began when Rinus VeeKay skidded into a tire barrier. Harvey was going too quick. He just couldn't avoid VeeKay, slammed into the back of him, or VeeKay, slammed into the back of VeeKay's car. Kyle Kirkwood, also going too fast and trailing Harvey's car, came barreling into and then went over Harvey's car, right over his head. Don't we appreciate the halo and the aero screen now?
Yes, sir.
Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing released a statement on Tuesday, said Harvey had been taken to a local hospital. Harvey himself adding, quote, I couldn't avoid Rinus and then just had a little bit of pain in both wrists when I was trying to get out of the car. Physically, I'd say it was a tough race, but I felt great. He was checked and released, but IndyCar officials have not cleared him to race just yet. Rahal Letterman Lanigan said that they have been testing their substitute driver. His name is Yuri Vips. He was at Barber Motorsports Park earlier this week, just in case Harvey wasn't going to be cleared in time for race number 2, coming up the first weekend of April when they go to Texas Motor Speedway. Harvey's set to undergo at least one more evaluation before that race weekend. As far as Vips, he was 1.2 seconds slower than Scott McLaughlin's fast fastest time on the 2-day test session, but he also wasn't the slowest guy out there amongst the 16 who participated in the test. He was actually 13th on the speed chart. He bested, for example, 2023 rookie Stingray Robb. I'm sorry, I'm just never going to get used to that name. But here's the thing. I can understand where he might be a little quicker than the rookie. He bested the veteran Simon Pagenaud on the speed chart, too. Not bad.
Not bad at all. So, anybody at Barber Motorsports Park, I'm listening, that is listening, I'm making a plea to you for this next, for the race in April, actually in May.
Yeah.
I'm making a plea to have Matt Coulter do the trackside PA to where he can just say Stingray Robb's name really loud at the top of his lungs.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. That'd be fantastic.
Stingray Robb.
Yeah, I actually do want to hear that.
That would be
fantastic. And if he can't do it, we're available. Just saying. Ryan Hunter-Reay, no longer full-time in IndyCar, but he does continue to race. For example, we've talked about him. He's joining the SRX series. He actually did it last year. He's going to rejoin them this year. He's also set to get a chance to compete for this year in the Indy 500. He's been tapped by Dreyer and Reinbold Racing to run one of their cars. The 2012 series champion and 2014 winner of the Indy 500 going to give Dreyer and Reinbold Racing a 2-car IndyCar team is going to be joining up with Stephen Wilson. Hunter-Reay's going to drive the number 23. Wilson's going to drive a number 24, both of them powered by Chevrolets. I would give you pictures, but unfortunately we didn't have any to give you, so I can't tell you what the cars are actually going to look like. And here's the thing. DRNR may not know.
Time for the stop the play here, go for an official review.
Oh, okay.
Who has driven this number 24 car for the longest time in the Indianapolis 500? Sage Karam. Does this tell me that Sage Karam is officially migrated to stock cars since he is running today in Atlanta for his first race of the year?
Well, he's certainly not running for Dreyer and Reinbold.
That says, that kind of speaks a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, me.
I think it does, yeah. Speaking of Hunter-Reay, he's also set to be inducted into the Long Beach Walk of Fame right alongside James Hinchcliffe. This is all in the lead up to the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach coming up on mid-April, April 14th through the 16th. The two are both prior winners of the what's really considered to be the second crown jewel on the IndyCar schedule, behind obviously the Indy 500. Their stars are set to appear alongside prior honorees on South Pine Avenue in Long Beach around the city's Convention and Entertainment Center if you choose to go, vacationing in California, which it is a nice place to visit. Wouldn't want to live there. Hinch won the race in 2017. Ryan Hunter-Reay won it back in 2010. From Walk of Fames to Hall of Fames, Indianapolis Motor Speedway has their own Hall of Fame, and they have announced their 2023 class. It's a pretty small class. Well, it's a really small class. It's a class of 2. It's Tim Cindric of Penske Motorsports, and it's Tony George, family member of the former owners of Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series, the Holman George family. For Cindric, of course, we just talked about him. He is at Penske Motorsports. He's the president of Team Penske. He's overseeing not only their IndyCar operations, but their NASCAR Cup Series operations, their IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series operations, and, oh, by the way, their racing efforts in the World Endurance Championship. Tony George, meanwhile, was born into the George family, which owned the famous track and series since just after World War II. He was named president and CEO of the company in 1989, stayed there for, 20 years, till 2009. He's the 4th member of the Holman George family to go into the Hall. His grandfather, the man who made the purchase right after World War II, Anton Tony Holman Jr., he's in there, obviously. Grandmother Mary Holman's in there, and Mother Mary Holman George also in there. It was Tony who brought NASCAR to the famous track in the 1994 racing season. He also brought Formula One back to the United States from 2000 to 2007. Of course, that didn't work out so well in 2007 when they were not quite done with the paving project and made Formula One race on it anyway.
Yeah.
That was a rather ignominious 5-year end of Formula One in the United States.
That was a bad one.
Until we built that track down in Texas called COTA. Then there's this. I'm one of the ones looking forward to this. John actually works at the TV station that will carry it. If you're looking forward to the debut of the 100 Days to Indy on the CW network, you got a little bit more than a month to go. It'll debut April the 27th. But there is a sneak peek if you just can't wait. It's right now on YouTube. Well, wait till after the show is done. Then you can check it out. It's co-produced by Vice World News and Penske Entertainment. The series is going to detail the goings-on of the 2023 IndyCar season that leads up all the way to the Indy 500. And it does have familiarity. If you have watched, for example, Netflix Formula One Drive to Survive, you've got sit-down interviews with the people that are involved in IndyCar, the drivers, probably some of the team owners, although the preview that I got to see did not show that. It was debuted at South by Southwest down in Texas. Pretty neat little film festival going on down there. And now it is available on YouTube. I did check it out. It does whet my appetite for checking this particular series out. And then something that I found this morning, and I did not include here, but, you know, polls happen all the time. And USA Today, you know, the nation's newspaper. You remember newspapers, don't you, kids? Newspapers, it's that print thing that you unfold and you read. It supposedly has news. Anyway, ask your grandparents, kids. USA Today is polling the public again. One of the categories is asking you to vote for your favorite motorsports race. Amongst the races you can choose from IndyCar, the Indy 500, and the Acura Long Beach Grand Prix. Me personally, I would have chosen Barbara Motorsports Park, but I'm a home kind of guy.
Yeah.
There are 3 cup races to choose from. There's the Daytona 500, there's the Go Bowling at the Glen at Watkins Glen, and the Bristol Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway. Also up for grabs there, the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals. 2 Formula One races. One is the U.S. Grand Prix at COTA in Austin, Texas, and also in there, the Mexican Grand Prix. Okay. For sports cars, you could choose the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. Strangely not the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Then if you're an off-road kind of person, how about the BF Goodrich Tires Mint 400 or the King of the Hammers or the Vegas to Reno off-road races? Plus, if you're a big-time traditionalist, Bonneville Speed Week in Utah. You got 3 weeks to go vote by going to www.10best.com/awards/travel/best motorsports race 2023, or just go to your favorite search engine and go, Best Motorsports Race 2023 USA Today, and I bet you it'd take you there too. By the way, I did vote.
So.
I voted. I chose Watkins Glen. No disrespect to the Daytona 500 or the Bristol Dirt Race or the Indy 500 or Acura or any of the others that were listed there. I just like Watkins Glen and the racing there.
Same here. Same here.
I'll let you place your own vote. I'm not trying to bias you. Let's see what else is going on. How about we turn our attention over to Formula One here as we get prepared to turn our attention here almost to our guest coming up.
So,
Let's go ahead and deal with this in the fact that we've got to come up with a break anyway, so let's go ahead and get the break prepared and ready to roll. Don't forget, we have ourselves a guest.
yes, the voice of the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series. I had to get that right because
Sure.
of the mouthful. Johnny Gibson will be joining us to just go over how the season's going so far and help preview the sprint car event next Friday at Talladega Short Track.
There you go. Going to be a good time. Might have to try and figure out a way to go over there and check some of that out.
I will be there.
I'm not shocked. Plus, we're going to talk a little Formula One action. There's actually a pretty good amount of Formula One news that we got to get to in the next segment here, and then we're going to spend all of the final segment with Mr. Gibson right here on the Championship Racing Network. Got 2 different tracks that are in the news when it comes to Formula One. One is Austria. We know the future of the Austrian Grand Prix. And then I was talking about at the race recap how this weekend's race for Formula One's at the Jeddah Corniche temporary course in Saudi Arabia. We may end up taking the temporary off. Details coming up after this on CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
We might have a few minutes before the end of this particular segment before we turn our attention to Mr. Gibson here in the final segment of the show. So, yeah, if you got any questions about myself, Matt, producer John, or what you've heard on the show so far, go ahead and post them up, and we'll see if we can't get to them before this segment is over. But we turn our attention to Formula One, where, first off, they're into their third of 3 practice sessions here.
Yes, FP3.
And it's not a big shock. Red Bull has been fast all weekend long. Is that continuing?
They are, yeah, that and then some. They are collectively, let's see, Verstappen is up top. Perez is second.
Shocking.
Perez is half a second off of Verstappen. Fernando Alonso P3, that is another 0.4 off of Perez.
By the way, we already have some people that cover Formula One on a regular basis. In other words, that's their livelihood. They've already said Fernando Alonso probably going to win this year. I can see that.
Well, he's in good shape.
He is really in good shape.
Lance Stroll 4th, and hey, look who joined the party.
Uh-oh.
Lewis Hamilton in 5th.
Oh, all right. By the way, Mercedes, this is race 2 of the year. Remember this. Mercedes has already changed the floor of both of their cars and brought a new rear wing. They're about to throw the kitchen sink and probably more. They might try and find an outhouse and throw that at the car this year to try and get it back into the winning graces.
Just don't throw a porta john.
No. Who else is up there?
Let's see. Lance Stroll 4th, Lewis Hamilton 5th. The McLaren twins of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri 6th and 7th. Pierre Gasly 8th.
See if that translates into race form.
Cousin George Russell's 9th, and Zhou Guanyu, my best imitation of the Sky Sports guy,
There you go.
sitting in P10. So thank you for knocking out my 5 of the top 10, Zhou Guanyu. With my fantasy F1, I'm sitting 1, 2, 3, 8, and 11 now.
Not bad. Where are the Haas F1 twins, just to be curious?
That's going to be Nico is in 11th. K-Mag is in 15th.
Okay. We'll find out.
The AlphaTauris, where the heck are you? And Ferrari at the bottom of the totem pole in 17th and 18th. Come on, Fred.
We'll find out. Formula One officials have come to terms with the race promoters of the Austrian Grand Prix and have extended the contract through 2027. Austria has been off and on the Formula One calendar really since they first joined back in 1964. That first race was a one-year-only deal. 64, that was at the Zeltwig Air Base. Then they rejoined for a slate of events that happened from 1970 to 1987. They moved from Zeltwig to the nearby town of Spielberg, where the race really has been held ever since. The course has had a couple of different name changes and undergone some changes over the course of that time. The 1987 race, though, was the last one run because, well, it needed to be restarted twice with accidents that happened on the front straight, and Formula One deemed it, at that point in time, kind of outdated. The track had become too narrow for what the cars were becoming and therefore too dangerous by the FIA. Noted the course was also considered to be a high-speed course, and because it lacked width, it just wasn't workable anymore. So they went off the calendar. Over the next decade, Austria and the officials started doing work to the racing surface and grabbing a new title sponsor, renamed it the A1 Ring, and it come back to the Formula One schedule from 1997 through 2003. But then they lost the contract, and it didn't come back until a new agreement brought it back in 2014, with the track now having not only new race promoters, but new owners and a new name, the Red Bull Ring. It'll continue through at least 2027. Formula One, however, appears to be no longer thinking about, for example, a street course in downtown London, to which I say thank you. ESPN is reporting, despite several proposals that did go in front of Formula One officials, that there are no talks at this time about bringing a race downtown. It means that the site of what is considered to be Formula One's first ever race, Silverstone, appears safe to continue to host the series for the foreseeable future. I don't mind street course racing, don't get me wrong, but I don't care about going in downtown London. You got got 2 perfectly good race courses within easy driving distance from London.
Yeah.
You got Silverstone, which again, that's been the heritage one, but they've also run at a place called Brands Hatch, which is a nice little track too. Why you going downtown?
Just so they could race around Buckingham Palace and Big Ben.
And Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah.
So?
No. I'll pass on that one.
Yep. Hey, Got 3 United States-based races this year, in case you forgot. We also got 2 races based in Italy. Yeah, that's right. Emilia-Romagna plus the Italian Grand Prix. So what about other countries? Could we have multiple races in other countries? Well, it seems like officials in Saudi Arabia are hoping to get 2. The country was first featured just a couple of years ago on the Formula One schedule. They debuted in 2021 at the track that we were just talking about, the Jeddah Corniche temporary circuit, right? Meantime, they're building a more permanent course for Formula One to move to, they say, in a couple of years in the town of Qadiyah. It is a resort town. They are building it specifically to be a travel destination that will have a permanent road course. Thing about it is, Saudi officials now seem prepared to vie for keeping the race on the Jeddah circuit and adding the Qadiyah course to the schedule as well. In other words, 2 races. Saudi Prince Al Fazal told the media, quote, Saudi Arabia is a very big market. We have a strong economy. The idea of having 2 races in Saudi is doable. Formula One's growing. There's a lot of demand here, and because Saudi is big, the region's so far away, it's kind of like the United States. You have 3 races in the States because the market is big there, and there is a demand. The sport's growing, the demand's growing, so I wouldn't be surprised if Saudi, in the near future, will host 2 races. The demand's there. We have 2 beautiful facilities. Well, technically, Prince, you got about 1.5. Because, yes, Jeddah's there. But the construction in Qadiyah is still ongoing. And while your plan is to have it on the schedule when the new engine regulations begin in 2026, people that are paying more attention to the construction say, yeah, it's probably looking more like, about 2028, 2029.
At the rate this is going, if you guys want to see F1 implode with crybabies, the rate this is going, F1 will have 30 races a year.
Yeah. I could see it because this is a good and it's a bad thing. Okay, they're at 23 races this year, and the only reason they're not at 24 is because, well, China's China, and they couldn't find a replacement in time. Next year, they're going to go to 24 because, unless I miss my guess, they're going to have China ready to go back on the schedule next year, but they're going to have the backup ready to go in case China is still, well, China.
Yeah.
So
don't see it happening.
I could see 24 races happening next year, almost undoubtedly. And that's the 3 races in the U.S., the 2 races in Italy included. Two races in Saudi Arabia. They're talking about going to Africa for the first time in, I don't know, what, 20-plus years? I think it was
something
late
like
80s
that.
the last time where they were down there?
That was the 90s.
Early 90s?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so 20, 25, whatever it was, years. They're talking about going back to Africa. They're talking about maybe doing some more stuff in South America. Somebody's either going to really, really complain about the fact that they're losing a Formula One race or 2, or we're going to have to go past the Concord agreement between Formula One, the FIA, the team owners, and the drivers that said we're limiting it at 24 a year. Good luck. There's the good part about the growth of Formula One in the fact that around the world, the popularity continues to rise, and especially here in the United States, the biggest sports market in the world. But the bad side is that everybody now wants in.
And I think we've established this before on these very airwaves. From a travel standpoint, why don't the geniuses at F1 regionalize the schedule? Because you could
Curious about that too.
You could run 3 races in the U.S. Bam, bam, bam.
Here's the thing, though. I don't really have a problem with them doing a little bit of the, splitting it up into 2, for example. But what I would do is I would go Canada, Miami.
I would go Canada, Miami, Austin.
You could do that.
Mexico,
but
Brazil.
But let's keep it the kind of the way that they have it now. You do Canada, Miami, then you go back to Europe. You come back to the United States after, what, the Asian swing?
Something like that.
Okay. So you go through Europe, and then you go do the Asian swing. Then you come back to North America. You run COTA, run Mexico City, then run Vegas. It's not that much of a travel bit. That's drivable. Okay? Okay, so you run COTA, You run Mexico, you run Vegas, then you do Brazil. As it is now, they're doing COTA, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas. You want a little separation, okay, but, let's make it drivable. And I get it. You're dealing with a whole bunch of morons and drug cartels and all that in the northern part of Mexico, but still, you might be able to find an honest cop or two that will help you escort you to the United States border. Maybe. I hope.
I would like to see that convoy that would be going from Austin, Texas to Vegas.
It'd be fun, wouldn't it?
That would be a convoy and a half.
It'd be fun to watch that one.
Running 515 up to Albuquerque, Lubbock, Abilene, or you just run I-10 all the way, I-10 all the way from Austin all the way to El Paso, through Tucson and Phoenix. Oh,
and then turn north from Phoenix up to Vegas.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with that. Let's see what else we got here. We were just talking about Mercedes after one race already changing their cars with a new floor pan and a new rear wing. Well, it took all of one race for a driver to incur a grid spot penalty. We usually don't hear about that until late in the year, but Charles Leclerc of Ferrari has himself a problem. Leclerc had to retire his car from the season opening race in Bahrain due to an electrical problem. Thing about it is, that was the second ECU electrical control unit of the weekend for that car. Ferrari had to change it out prior to the race. Formula One rules only allow for 2 ECUs per team per season. Due to them already going to the third ECU of the year, the team was hit with a 10 grid spot penalty for that change out. So wherever he happens to qualify, and right now it's at the back of the pack based upon practice speeds, he's going to have to slide back 10 starting spots to begin at Saudi Arabia. If he doesn't incur all 10 at Saudi Arabia, it goes to the next race. After the season opener at Bahrain, new Ferrari team boss Frederick Vasseur said that improving quality was a major priority for the team. Remind me how fast they're going in practice session number 3.
They
Matt?
would be 17th and 18th out of 20.
Quality's job one, boys and girls.
Yes, sir.
Sir Lewis Hamilton is, after his first and to date only season of not winning a race, it has led to changes for him, not just the car. Among them, he split with his longtime trainer and physiotherapist, Angela Cullen. Cullen actually quit. She found a better job. Sorry, Lewis, I had to say it. Cullen began working with Hamilton back in 2016, was with him when he claimed 6 of his 7 Formula One titles. She was actually kind of assigned to him through the company that she was working for, and she has since left that company and moved on to another company, and therefore no longer working with Hamilton. Hamilton posted about that on social media, said, quote, "For the last 7 years, Angela's been by my side, pushing me to be the best version of myself. I am a stronger athlete and a better person because of her. So today I hope you'll join me in wishing her the very best as she takes her next steps to pursue her dreams. Thank you for everything, Ange. I can't wait to see what the future has in store for you." Good luck. And Formula One officials have announced they are officially set to support a charity called Race Against Dementia. It was started by one of the sport's legends, Sir Jackie Stewart. Charity was begun to raise money for global research, development, and treatments, and hoping to find a cure for dementia. Stewart's wife, Lady Helen, was diagnosed with it back in 2015, and Stewart had to watch as she slowly deteriorated until her passing in 2019. The announcement of the official backing of Stewart's charity came fittingly on the 50th anniversary of his third and final Formula One title in 1973. Stewart said of the announcement, and no, I don't have a good Scottish accent, said of the announcement, quote, "My wife of over 60 years, Helen, was diagnosed with frontotemporal, it's easy for me to say, frontotemporal dementia in 2015. So I know firsthand that people living with dementia face the problems that they face. This crisis cannot continue. Please help me in joining our race against dementia." So I would imagine you're going to see that a lot. If you happen to just see, for example, RAD around there, Race Against Dementia, that is the reason why. And very noble cause. I think it's a fantastic move on their part, truth be told, because they're able to go through and do something that it's not a regional thing. It's not something that's just local and endemic to one part of the world. It's kind of like cancer. All of us here on this show and all of you that are listening and or watching on CRN Live on YouTube either have been personally or know someone who has dealt with the ravages of cancer. Okay, my wife was diagnosed with it a couple of years ago. Luckily, she's cancer-free. My father died from it. Her mother died from it. I know that Matt's had family members and friends that have dealt with it, and so has John.
I have.
So have likely you. This is kind of the same situation. We're seeing this much more and much more. We're talking about not just dementia, we're talking about Alzheimer's disease. I mean, I'm a big fan. For example, ESPN has done 2 things recently when it came to the Southeastern Conference. They're very, very involved in it. And they came up with 2 specials, one back, I think, in 2018, 2019, that was all about the history of the SEC football. And now they're doing Southern Hoops. It's Southern SEC basketball. And they talked a pretty good bit about former Tennessee Vols women's coach Pat Summitt, who had to resign because she had been diagnosed with dementia, early Alzheimer's, if you will. And it took her life in fairly rapid-fire fashion. We all have heard about this. We all know about this. This is a more than worthy cause, and I appreciate Formula One getting involved in it. And, hey, I hope they can raise a whole heck of a lot of money, and maybe we can actually come up with something that'll stem that tide.
Yep.
Before we go to break,
By all means.
got a question for Matt from a viewer,
You, Matt?
listener.
Oh.
Yes, you, Matt.
Oh, boy.
Matt's asking questions of himself.
No, for Matt.
Oh. Sure.
Not from Matt.
Sure.
It's from Michael.
Oh, hi, Michael.
He wants to know what's your best finish in racing, and what are your plans to get back, and when are you getting back to the track?
My best finish in racing, I've got 28 wins to my credit at 1, 2, 3 different facilities. No, check that, 4. 28 wins at 4 different facilities. My plans to get back are still to be determined because, you know, some of the things, family life, we're getting that taken care of first. But I've always said, and I'm sticking to my guns on this one, when the right opportunity presents itself, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to just jump into a car just to say, hey, I'm jumping into a car. Because some cars I will consider death traps. Dirt races around here, no.
I thought he was going to say some cars I will consider getting in,
Some,
but they're death traps.
Death traps. But hopefully, maybe 24, if everything works out right. Because there's a lot of things on the plate right now for 23.
Okay.
So maybe 24, start dabbling into a little bit here and there. So, but we'll see.
Very cool. So there you go. All those questions, by the way, you can do throughout the course of the week as well. If you go to team@crnradio.us, you can email them there. Obviously, if we're live on the show, you can type in the question there and we'll get to it. But yeah, feel free to throw questions at us pretty much at all times. Chi-Town Mark, get mad and engine.
Well, today is an unfortunate anniversary. It's a 6-year anniversary of that engine letting go. So, all the boys at Ilmore, Mark, I'll be glad to take
Sure.
one of those Ilmores.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they'll sponsor him, just give him an engine. He'll be happy to put that big Ilmore logo on the side
Happy,
of the car.
ecstatic.
Absolutely.
Boy, in a minute.
All right. When we come back, we are slated to be joined by Johnny Gibson, who is the voice of the sprint cars from the World of Outlaws NOS Racing Division. So we're looking forward to that. And if not, we'll just sit here and chat for the next 15, 20 minutes, won't we? Stick around. We'll be back right here on the Championship Racing Network. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers with you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we shall return after these necessary words from sponsors.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Our guest, maybe miscommunication or something going on in the background. We could presume all day long, but, we're not going to because we don't know. I mean, there are always things that are going on in the world, and we're not going to assume or presume, and hopefully we'll be able to have him back on at some point in time.
Or
here
your
in the near
producer
future.
just dropped the ball.
Nope. Well.
No, that didn't happen. So,
No, we're not blaming you.
so any more questions, kids? Fire them away.
Yeah, feel free. So we're going to Atlanta Motor Speedway later today. We're going to be leaving here once the show is done, and we're going to head on over there. We're going to check out the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, and then we'll be there tomorrow as well for the Cup Series. And then we got to go back to work on Monday, so that ought to be interesting. But, looking forward to that.
It will not be anywhere remotely as rough as it was for me on Thursday and the Friday being at the first round of the NCAA tournament in Birmingham. That got a little bit rough.
Yeah. We just got to figure out how to get out of Atlanta, and once we finally get out of Atlanta, we're going to be fine. But that being said, we've also got, as he mentioned, this Friday night, Talladega Short Track, otherwise known as the Hornet's Nest. World of Outlaws
Sprint Car Series come back. First trip since 2011. Yes, 2011.
Now, we've said this on many occasions. John and I, as we drive here for the show and as we head back home, we drive I-20, which takes us right by both Talladega Short Track, which is right up against I-20, and Talladega Superspeedway, which you can see very easily from I-20. And last week, when we were there at Talladega for the Alabama Wildlife Federation's Wild Game Cook-Off, which...
Thank you for having us, by the way.
Matt's sporting the shirt right there, as it turns out.
Best $20 long sleeve shirt I've ever purchased.
There you go. By the way, Russell, I'm still expecting my vest. Just saying. We had a great time, but in going back and forth, Matt told me that one of the things that Talladega Short Track had to do to be able to bring the World of Outlaws back was they had to build a wall around turns 1 and 2, which basically it had just been highly banked, and, if you went over, and, down a hill. Now there's a wall there. And I had kind of noticed it as we drove by on I-20, but considering the orientation of where turns 1 and 2 are, which is away, the far side from I-20, Interstate 20, it was kind of difficult to see. You could just kind of tell that the wall was there. You couldn't really get a good look at it. Last week, got a good look at it because we were going down Speedway Boulevard, which takes us to Talladega Superspeedway, and I happened to look over and I went, okay, it looks good.
Yeah, you can see it.
But I got to get used to the fact that there's a wall there now.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get used to that, because when I came down Speedway Boulevard from the turn 1 and 2 side going to the track last Saturday, and I thought, oh.
Yeah. That's different.
That looks different.
It is different. But it's not a bad different. Like I said, it's just going to take a little bit getting used to the fact that now that wall is there.
But they've since the facility changed ownership a few years ago, there have been some massive improvements made out there, and it's to no fault of anyone. Well, it depends. To each his own, depending on how you look at it.
Okay,
let's say it that way. There were some aspects of the facility that had fallen way off. Let's just say it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But,
see that.
And
now
there are tracks that go through that. I mean, sometimes if that's the main business of the particular owner, sometimes you go through some rough times. Obviously, the economy sometimes has problems, and therefore things kind of fall through the cracks from time to time.
Things happen, but now press box has been on, new surface, whole 9 yards.
Very cool stuff. Well, in that case, let's turn our attention over to you because, again, Friday night, World of Outlaws is coming.
NOS Energy Drink Sprint Cars, and now we have on the voice of the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series, Johnny Gibson. Johnny, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Looking forward to coming back to Talladega for the first time in way too long.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. He thought it was about 2011. Is that about right?
Yeah, 2011 is the last time I have us racing at Talladega with David Growell getting the win.
First career win. I remember that night really well.
Yep.
It was David's first career win, and look where his career's at now. He's got over 70 or 80 wins, I think.
Yep, and current point leader coming into this evening's race here at Lincoln Speedway in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Oh, you guys are up there with a posse this weekend.
Yes.
So tell us here your memories of Talladega Short Track from the last time that you were here, and have you had the chance to see it since it's kind of been redone?
Actually, I have not. I'm really looking forward to it. What I remember about Talladega Short Track was fantastic racing. I mean, the track would get dead slick top to bottom, slide jobs every corner, just amazing racing. The facility was a little lacking, and if I'm not mistaken, just from what I caught right before I got joined into the show here, that there's been a lot of big improvements at Talladega Short Track.
There have. A few years ago, the press box caught fire. There's a brand new press box. There's a wall in turn 1 and 2. The track has been resurfaced, so I wouldn't be totally surprised if the official track record failed this coming weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, man. I'm looking forward to, like I said, seeing the new press box for me is going to be really cool because, again, I remember things being, a little on the dated side the last time we were around. So the improvements I'm looking forward to seeing. And, again, the racing at Talladega has always been absolutely fantastic. I've told people for years, we haven't been there in so long, but, man, every time we went there, it seemed like we had a barn burner.
Yeah, I'm personally expecting it to be a barn burner as well, but with how the series has went so far for 2023 up until this current weekend, kind of looking forward to next weekend, who would you say out of the series so far has the most momentum coming into Talladega next Friday night?
Well, really, again, we go back to David Gravel and his strong start with the season. But Carson Macedo has had a good 2023 so far. But we're going to have not only all of the full-time drivers with the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series, but a couple of maybe surprises as well. I know Rico Abreu is here at Lincoln, going to unload for the first time in 2023, and I know he expects to come to Talladega next week. Sam Haferteep is here. I look for him to come to Talladega as well. So we should bring a pretty stout field of cars. And, again, it's one of those things where we haven't raced there since 2011. And tonight at Lincoln Speedway, we debut a brand-new tire, a new compound, new sidewall construction. So, really, anything that we've seen up to this point in 2023 kind of goes out the window because nobody has a notebook on this new tire. So everybody's basically starting from scratch here tonight.
So it's going to be the driver that kind of adjusts to that new feel just that much quicker then.
Absolutely.
Are there drivers that you look at that can make that adjustment that fast other than maybe the names that you just mentioned?
I think any driver at this level is capable, but the biggest thing is going to be not just the driver making that adjustment, but the driver and crew that work together the best to figure out what the car needs to compensate for the new tire combination are going to be the ones that are going to be up front. So maybe even some guys that have struggled earlier in 2023, a fresh start for them, a chance for them to maybe get on the rebound.
That's true. Talking with Johnny Gibson, who's the voice of the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series. And let's find out a little bit about you here real quick. How'd you get started into the broadcasting world and get to the point where you became this voice?
I am just really the luckiest sprint car fan in the world. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I was working for the World of Outlaws selling souvenir programs back in 1996. Back then, the World of Outlaws had a television package with the old National Network.
Oh, yeah.
So back then, after I was done selling programs on the TV races, I'd go work for the production company and be a camera spotter or a runner and just a little bit of everything to help the broadcast out. And that's how I met Bobby Gerald, who was doing some pit reporting for TNN. And Bobby was also a track announcer at multiple racetracks out in California. We got to Hanford, California, King Speedway in September of 96. And Bobby asked me to come up to the booth and do an interview. He said, you kind of lived a life that a lot of fans would love to lead. You're a sprint car fan. You get to travel with the greatest series of sprint cars in the world. I want to talk to you about it. So I went up to the booth. I talked to Bobby for a little bit. And he said, you seem to be a fairly well-spoken guy, and you obviously have a lot of knowledge about the sport. Have you ever thought about being an announcer? And I said, not really. And Bobby hands me a microphone, says, first heat race is coming out. Go ahead and give it a shot.
Nothing like being thrown into the fire.
One heat race. Yeah, exactly. I called one heat race and thought, okay, that was an interesting, once-in-a-lifetime thing. And 3 weeks later, Ted Johnson, who was the founder and president of the World of Outlaws, called me up into his office and said, we're going to try something new next year. You're going to be our announcer.
Okay, then.
So basically, baptism by fire. I'd announced one heat race total in my life before I became the World of Outlaws Series announcer.
That's kind of a similar scenario for me. The first time I was on a public address system was at Talladega Superspeedway for an ARCA Menard Series event, while my Steve here, the fellow co-host, was doing the FM broadcast for our local affiliate, carrying the ARCA Menard Series, and talk about as nervous as an alley cat.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But one last question I've got before the show ends here. I want to turn the clock back to 2020. How neat was it for you when Fox Sports come up to you to want to do the dirt racing, the iRacing Dirt Night in America? How much fun was that to do that with Mike Joy and Clint and all those guys?
Oh, it was a blast, and again, that kind of came out of the blue as well. I was just basically, sitting around in Pennsylvania and not doing much, like all of us were at the time, and I said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to Charlotte to do this?" It was a cool experience, but also a very weird experience because again, during the pandemic, all the precautions that were taken.
Oh, yeah.
We did the broadcast, but we were all in separate rooms. We weren't sitting next to each other. So very difficult to try to get a read off of somebody when you can't really look at them and know exactly when to join in the conversation. But I thought it went reasonably well for as little time as we'd spent together, and for none of us having really worked together before.
One final question for me before, unfortunately, our time begins to run out. And you said you were talking about the broadcasting of this. Is this going to end up on a way that people can listen to it via either radio and or the internet? And can they catch it on television? And we're talking about not just the United States, but we've got people all around the world who are actually listening to us right now.
Always dirtvision.com. Dirtvision with live video and audio coverage of every World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series event. Go to dirtvision.com for details, for subscriptions for the video. The live audio is always free.
Very cool. Very cool. Johnny Gibson, we would love to be back in contact with you and have you back on the show, or heck, if you're able to stick around next week, maybe Saturday morning, I don't know, next Saturday morning, we could have you in studio.
Hey.
Probably not going to work next Saturday, unfortunately. We have to go over to Columbus, Mississippi. We race at Magnolia Motor Speedway next Saturday night.
I got you.
Yep,
so it's you're traveling pretty quick then.
Yeah, exactly. I'll probably roll out actually after the races Friday night and head over to Magnolia. I prefer to do my driving at night. I travel the series with my motorhome, so I'd rather get there and not have any surprises thrown at me if I get up in the morning and start to make my way to the speedway and have a breakdown or a flat tire or something. So
no, understand it fully. So, yeah, you be careful over there. But, yes, indeed, we do want to have you back on. So we'll be in contact with you here as the season goes on. And all the best to you. And can't wait for you guys to be at the Hornets' Nest Friday night.
Guys, I can't wait. I am so looking forward to Talladega Short Track Friday night with the greatest show on dirt.
All right, Johnny. Thank you very much. Be safe in your travels, and we'll talk to you here real soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
Johnny Gibson, NOS Energy Drinks, Sprint Car Series, World of Outlaws, the voice of that particular series. And again, they're going to be at Talladega Short Track this Friday night. If you get the chance to go, please do. Go support the track. Go support your local racing. And, of course, we're about ready to head out and go see what's going on over at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
With him, there is no better phrase to start an event than his classic phrase, classic line, you wanted the best, you've got them four abreast.
There you go. Good stuff. Hope you get the chance to check it out. Enjoy the racing this weekend as well. We'll be back next weekend to detail it all right here on the Championship Racing Network. On behalf of producer John Myers and Matt Nicholson, I'm Steve West. Ready for Atlanta?
Eastbound and down, boys.
Try and cooperate, people, because we got places to go and things to do and people to see. And I know that the Beltway is a big pain in the hindquarters, but for the love, don't screw it up like you seem to always do.
John, you got that helicopter yet?
Yeah. You need an engine sponsor, Ilmore.
Check.
You need to get a helicopter sponsor.
Bell? Cessna? We're waiting.
We're available. Just saying. CRNradio.us. You can get contact there. Y'all have a great week. We'll talk to you next week right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.